This year, the Bavarian automaker marks 2 decades since the introduction of its 1 Series hatchback, and it brings more than an appropriate novelty to celebrate this anniversary. The new 4th generation is here, with evolutionary but important changes. Better than ever, some say. Others are not delighted with the new styling. Still, no one can deny massive improvements on the inside. The BMW 1 Series is the company's latest hot hatch. Is it a worthy successor or not? Let's find out together. Like so many times, BMW brings evolutionary changes with the latest redesign of the 1 Series. It may be because the outgoing generation has been around for less than 5 years. Or, as many times before, Bavarians simply didn't have enough courage to do something more radical. In any case, the new model is here, and it really looks interesting. Of course, the first thing to notice is the styling, and indeed, this is probably the aspect with the least notable changes. It looks more like a facelift than a full redesign, especially if we consider that dimensions have remained pretty much untouched. The familiar hatchback silhouette is there, something that hadn't changed much since the 2nd generation when BMW made its smallest model front-wheel drive. The wheelbase remains the same, 105.1 inches, though the new model actually gains 1.7 inches in total and now measures 171.1 inches. The width is practically the same, though the new model is 0.9 inches higher than its predecessor, which may be the reason for a tiny bit bulkier appearance. In any case, the most notable changes are at the front, where the 1 Series has lost a bit of its sharpness and boldness. The new headlights feel a tiny bit rounder, while the grille is smaller and features design that combines vertical and oblique lines. It takes a little time to get used to the new design, but all in all, we like the new look of the front end. Also worth mentioning is that, unlike most modern BMWs, this one keeps things traditional in terms of door handles, which still haven't adopted that flush handle design, but rather stick with a more conventional solution. But on the other hand, unlike any other BMW, this one comes with a contrasting roof finish with a glossy black look. As for the wheels, there's a nice selection of designs ranging from 17 to 19 inches in diameter. Of course, once again, buyers can benefit from the visual upgrades that come with the M package, which brings a more common grille design, along with carbon fiber details, glossy black trim, and similar things. The all-new 2025 BMW 1 Series doesn't just look familiar from the outside, it has a lot in common with the previous generation under the skin too. This was an evolutionary redesign in every way, and that's easiest to see through the new mechanics. Once again, the 1 Series is based on a familiar UKL2 platform, so once again, it's not a typical BMW. You can't drift with this one, considering it's a front-wheel drive platform with an operational all-wheel drive system. It's the same layout as in, to Americans more familiar, the X1 and X2 models, and this also includes the same 7-speed dual-clutch transmission, which will once again be the only option on offer. Even the chassis and suspension setup aren't significantly different. In typical BMW fashion, there's a classic McPherson setup at the front, complemented by a multi-link setup on the rear. So far, this has been a proven recipe for a balanced ride, with a lot of athleticism in mind but without sacrificing comfort all that much, so we have no reason to believe that the new generation is going to be any different. The same is true with the M-badged model, which will once again receive all the upgrades from the famous tuner we love, including sporty suspension, bigger brakes, and things like that. And while some could complain about the exterior changes, pointing out their subtle character, that's really not the case with the cabin design. Moreover, things are completely the opposite, as we were talking about some of the most radical changes we've ever seen in the 1 Series. Of course, there's the new dashboard design, which follows the brand's latest design approach. Simplistic lines come in a combination with a massive panel that integrates a digital instrument cluster and infotainment screen. The former is good for about 10.7 inches, while the infotainment screen measures 10.25 inches. Not only that, it also comes with the company's latest iDrive 9 infotainment system. So, besides sharp graphics, it also offers better menu navigation, quicker response, and more functions. Finally, one of the big changes BMW lovers will notice is the absence of the traditional rotary knob. Speaking of the deletion of familiar features, the conventional gear lever is also gone, and it leaves space for a small, fancy-looking selector. Speaking of the gear selectors, paddle shifters are optional, just like the sports seats are, with accentuated bolstering and side support. As for the base version, the seats are also pretty decent, and yes, the whole interior is fully vegan, if that means something to you. As for the comfort side of the cabin, we won't know much more before we get a chance to try one, and considering the planned launch date, that's not going to happen in the next couple of months. Still, with almost identical exterior dimensions, we may presume that the amount of passenger and cargo space won't change either. This should remain a comfortable, passenger-friendly compact hatchback with a pretty decent cargo area. The outgoing generation is good for about 360 liters of cargo space, so we may expect no bigger changes in the future. As for the powertrain, BMW decided not to experiment much, so there are 4 options in total: 2 diesel and 2 gas units, 2 diesel and 2 petrol units. One of these 4 are also electrified, though once again with a mild 48-volt hybrid system. Of course, we might expect to see some heavier sort of electrification in the future, but for now, there's no word about a plug-in hybrid or all-electric version. Before we start with the engine lineup, it's also worth mentioning that BMW now has a new naming strategy. So far, the I suffix was used for models that burn petrol, but with the emergence of electric cars, it seems like this letter is more appropriate for vehicles that use electricity. Therefore, instead of 120i and M135i, these variants are now simply called 120 and M135. The 120 once again represents the base version of the hatchback, and it comes with the familiar 1.5-liter turbocharged 3-cylinder engine, which gets a little help from a 48-volt mild hybrid system. In total, this system puts out around 168 horsepower and 206 pound-feet of torque, which is plenty enough to ensure 0 to 60 in about 7.8 seconds, as well as a top speed of 140 miles per hour. On the other hand, the diesel versions continue with their familiar monikers. The base 118D comes with a 2-liter turbo diesel that puts out around 148 horsepower and 265 pound-feet of torque, with a 0 to 60 time of about 8.3 seconds, while the more powerful variant, called the 120D, uses the same engine coupled with a 48-volt hybrid system for a combined output of 161 horsepower and 295 pound-feet of torque. It's slightly quicker too, with a 0 to 60 time of about 7.9 seconds. Both diesel variants have a top speed of 138 miles per hour. Finally, the M135 is, once again, the most powerful version in the lineup. Besides various chassis and suspension upgrades, bigger brakes, exclusive styling details, and other modifications, it also comes with significantly more power, thanks to the well-known B48 engine. In its latest version, it puts out between 296 and 312 horsepower, depending on the market, as well as a max output of 295 pound-feet of torque. Altogether, that's plenty enough to hit 62 miles per hour in just 4.9 seconds, while the top speed is electronically limited at 155 miles per hour. Although hatchbacks are usually associated with European consumers, they've become quite popular in North America too, especially hot versions like the Honda Civic Type R, Golf GTI, Golf R, etc. Therefore, it's a bit of a shame that, once again, BMW's hatchback won't be offered in North America. As for the other traditional 1 Series markets, things will continue in the same way. The new generation will once again be produced in Leipzig, and sales are expected to start sometime in October. Of course, the competition remains the same, mainly in the form of the Audi A3 and Mercedes-Benz A-Class. What do you think of the all-new 2025 BMW 1 Series? Do you think BMW made enough changes to keep it competitive in the years to come? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.